In your view, is the Rotman expansion project a wicked problem?
Well, it's a wicked problem, but it's a splendid wicked problem because it's very much about taking the school to another level in an urban context, in a creative city, at a very, very important university campus in the heart of Toronto. And so the number of issues that we're trying to resolve go from, what should a classroom of the 21st century be, to how should the Rotman engage the world and its urban context. And so there's a complete range of issues, and it really requires very broad thinking and an incredible amount of nimbleness, flexibility, and really negotiating, the right balance. Because at the end of the day, my father was a Buddhist, and he would say, better to travel hopefully than ever to arrive. And I think this project is really about a stage in the life of the school. And what you're trying to do, and I think what the school is trying to do, and what the school needs, is to have the right creative platform upon which it can be truly, truly successful and sustainable for a long, long time. I also think this project represents a certain amount of growth that we all understand, certainly within the immediate time frame. But I think it's really, in a way, a new beginning, and it actually points to what's next beyond this project even, and how the school connects with the rest of the world through architecture, through design, but through many, many other forms as well. And so I really do not see this as, the final stage of anything. This is really, let's say, an ongoing wicked problem that really requires immense amount of creativity.
Bruce, could you tell us a couple of the techniques that KPMB uses to create a creative environment?
First of all, in our studio, our office has always been incredibly open. We don't actually have offices. And a lot of it has to do with the kind of synergy and spontaneity of communication and the ability to see all aspects of the problem at any one time, and actually to learn from other projects that are being done in the office at the same time that you're doing something specific like the Rotman School. And so I think we have a particular culture of collaboration. We think we're geniuses at collaboration, because I think it's a skill that you can't literally just buy. You have to actually train yourself in ways of thinking and seeing. And the openness is really part of it, because you're constantly moving through our studio, and you'll see many, many things, and the conversations are very, very open. They're often overheard, and I think it's very, very healthy as a design culture. And in fact, it sort of invites everyone to participate in the project at the same time. So for example, someone may actually propose something, but they may not actually be working on the project. They may just see something, and we invite that. I think it's everybody's interest to make something that's really great, and you need a lot of great minds to do.
As we all know, the momentum for integrating sustainable design into architecture is building fast. How will the new building embrace this?
Well, I think the project is really trying to do a number of things. First of all, it is very much about the urban environment in a downtown setting, which already produces one of the key platforms for sustainability, which is really integration with the city as it is, the transportation systems, the infrastructure. Secondly, we're pursuing a LEED Silver rating. I think that it is the LEED program right now is really the kind of official sort of standard. But I think for us, sustainability means a lot more, and I think it's about the culture of the school. The idea of the university, to me as an alumnus, it's really, really important that you're building a sustainable institution, which is an academic institution. And so sustainability at the level that the Rotman is thinking is one part environmental, but the other part is really institutional and cultural and academic. And I think that's got going to have a huge impact on the future of the university and the future of the school, future of the city. So for me, sustainability isn't just a series of points that you gather through LEED. It's really a vision, for the entire school in the world.
What would be a couple of the examples of sustainable design that you're working on?
Everybody wants natural light, like we have it here, and the expression daylight autonomy often is brought up, that in fact if you didn't have to turn on lights in the workplace, you'd be saving 25% of your energy bill. The other key area is air quality. I think everyone wants to have control over fresh air, to be able to make it available through operable windows, through getting 100% fresh air into the building. And I think there are a lot of studies that relate creativity and productivity, absenteeism to environmental quality. Those two in themselves probably add up to probably 60% or more of your annual energy bill. And I think the other things just make a lot of sense. One is, material selection. I think there's a lot of material now that is available to us that wasn't available to us 10 years ago that we should really be looking at. Things that are really renewable and permanent. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, some people are interested in recycled materials. Well, I'm interested in materials that are absolutely permanent. So stone is actually quite good. Someone once said Knox College down the street was a really sustainable building because they haven't renovated it ever since it was built. There's a kind of enduring quality to architecture that's really, really important to us.
On that note, in a recent article, you asked, what is the value of a city without the collective memory of a historic fabric? How are historic elements being integrated into the Rotman expansion?
What was interesting, it was Robert Fulford who wrote an article as a film review on Sarah Polley's movie Away From Her, and it was about Alzheimer's disease. And in it, he sort of talked about people with Alzheimer's living in the perpetual present. There's no past. And I connected that to the idea of the city and city building and heritage buildings. In fact, if you can't remember what the city was, I mean, you're doomed to a perpetual present. At the Rotman, I mean, first of all, this isn't the first building for the Rotman. There is already a really great school in place. And so right off the bat, you're respecting that building, the structure of it, how it's organized, the flow in it, and how to connect to it. The second thing is that we have two heritage buildings, 91 and 97, St. George. And we made the case very carefully with Heritage Preservations that we are taking down number 91. It is not of the same pedigree as 97. And conversely, we are doing more with 97 to kind of respect its room structure and the form of the building. The same architects who did Hart House added on to 97. It has higher quality overall. So in a way, what we're doing is we're maintaining and adaptively reusing heritage resources while building something absolutely brand new. And at the same time, the new building, the whole project, has to really scale itself relative to Massey College, St. Thomas Aquinas, and the Newman Center, and also speak back to the Robarts. I mean, people tend to not even notice that it's there. It's the largest building that somehow people have a blind spot for. And I think the Rotman and the scale of it, and if you really look at the design that's coming forward, it really does a number of things. It not only respects heritage, but it actually acknowledges 70s buildings as heritage too. Whether we like them or not, I mean, they're there. And so the idea of the Rotman is that it would engage history in the broadest sense, not just things that are designated, but things that we think represent the layers of historical university culture and building, and do it in a way that's really respectful while saying something entirely new and of our.
Question for you, Bruce. You recently quoted John Ralston Saul in saying that Canada is strongest when it is open to complexity and heterogeneity. How does this apply to the Rotman expansion? I
think very much in the vein I was just speaking about. I mean, there's a photograph by a German photographer, Thomas Struth, that I really think is quite remarkable. It's a photograph of a family, different generations, different in-laws. You can clearly identify the grandparents, and it's kind of interesting studying it, and I think that's why he took it. It's about, you know, the typology of human beings and faces, and you sort of look at the photograph and you make relationships between people. Oh, they must be the children of those people because they kind of look similar and so on, or how could these grandchildren emerge from those grandparents and so on. But there's a critic, Richard Sennett, who wrote a piece on the photograph that really caught my attention, because what he did in his article is he sort of compared the people to buildings surrounding a public space. And that's how I look at buildings. You know, that's why, say, Canada's National Ballet School on Jarvis Street is very much the way it is. It's a group portrait, and this is what I think we're pushing for at the Rotman. It's not about sameness, and it's certainly not about buildings all being of one generation. And it's very much in the dynamic of Toronto, and it's very much in the dynamic of what I think of Canada in the way John Ralston Saul wrote about it, which is that it is never a homogeneous block. It's a new culture. It's a new world culture. And when Canadians try to think of it as some block of the founding nations, you'll always end up in a dead end. It's much, much more dynamic. So when you look at the Rotman in the future on St. George Street, it's really about embracing all of the generations and being very open. I have told people that I think the most critical thing about being Canadian is being open as a metaphor, and physically open and accessible. I think it's the key. It's not something about tolerance. I mean, it's about openness. And I think that the Rotman School will be very, very new. It'll be a really strong work of contemporary architecture, but one which is has established a dialogue and a conversation with everything around it. And I could say that's a metaphor for the school itself, this sort of notion that it's not just one thing. It's not one sort of block of knowledge. It's very heterogeneous and complex. That's why I like The Opposable Mind. That's why I read that very quickly. I told Roger that, I said, I think that book could only be written by a Canadian, because it actually is getting at some of the things I think are at the essence of being Canadian, which is the idea of being able to see the multiple sides and stand back and find the solution by not letting any part of the problem go away. That's what really great designers do. They say, well, it has to do this, it has to look good, it has to be, the price point has to be here, you know, and I think that it's just the nature of design and creative thinking. Otherwise, you'll have, the opposite is single-mindedness. You know, whatever I think is right is the only way to do it. Thank you very much. And I think that there is something I'd like to put out there that is quintessentially Canadian openness, which creates the first platform for creativity, real creativity, where you don't know the solution when you start. You don't know exactly what the end result is. That's what makes it experimental as a process, and that's where I think true innovation emerges. It emerges often at moments when you least expect it. And that's why the sort of culture of being able to see things, being able to be immersed in the problem, actually assists creativity, as opposed to everyone being in their own offices behind closed doors, thinking very, very hard on their own. Or they could be on the web, thinking very hard. But I actually believe in the notion of creativity in real time, face-to-face, in action, every day. Every day that I go to my office, I feel like it's going to a gymnasium. I really do. I just walk out into the studio, and I just think, you know, let's just make contact with the work itself, and really keep an open dialogue, a very open discourse on it, and then the best ideas prevail. And it'll be what it will be. It will find its expression in that paradigm. And that paradigm, to me, is very Canadian. So things are not so uniform. They're not dictated. They will be vital because they actually involve this interplay of new and old knowledge, new and old buildings, you know, old school, new school, Toronto and the world. It's really, really complex, and that's the best part of being in Toronto, that you live it on a daily basis. It really is quite a place, and it's kind of got this sense of things are percolating and there's a lot of possibility here that frankly I never saw, say, 15 years ago. There was less. There's much more now, and it has to do with a lot of factors, many of which have been studied and expressed. But from my point of view, it's about this notion of openness and really respect for ways of thinking.